So we finished Sefer Bereshis, embarking on Sefer Shemos. There's lots of different directions you could go with this parsha, with Sefer Shemos, Parsha Shemos. I chose over here to talk about leadership. What are the qualities of a leader? And as we go through the shir, as we go through the parsha, we're going to see three different cases, three different stories of people or a group of people that put themselves out and exhibited certain amazing things. And based on what they've done, they were chosen to be leaders. If you go back to Sefer Bereshis, the Sefer of the Avos, the beginning of the Shvatim, you find a lot of personal stories. The Rebbeinu Shalom chose Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, the Shvatim, a lot of personal stories. Different episodes where our Avos did something, they passed a test, they rose to the occasion, and it was more of a personal type of a gain. Now, obviously, those personal gains, like we had discussed many times, the Rambam, those are the things that become part of our DNA. But as we move to Sefer Shemos, this is the Sefer, not so much of the Avos, but this is the Sefer of us. This is the Sefer of Klal Yisrael. This is us coming together as a nation. And every group needs leaders. Every group needs people that could manage them, people that rise to the top and rise to the occasion. Starting the parsha, we have Pari coming up with the decree that the Jewish boys have to be killed. They have to be killed. So he calls in the midwives, Yocheved and Miriam, or Shifra and Pua, those were their midwife names. And he called them in and he said is that as the babies are born, if it's a girl, so you can let her live. If it's a boy, kill the boy. Kill the boy. And we all know, let's start with the first pasuk, V'lo yasu kasher diber alein melech Mitzrayim. The midwives, Yocheved and Miriam, did not do as they were commanded by Melech Mitzrayim, by Parai. V'techayena es hayeladim, and they kept the babies alive. But more than they kept them alive, v'techayena es hayeladim, they what? Excellent. They gave them mayim v'mazoin. They took care of their needs. That's what Rashi says that. Rashi is quoting the Medrash. Over here I brought down a Medrash. Let's look at this Medrash. V'chimi acher sheloi asu kasher diber alein. Once the Torah tells us that Yocheved and Miriam, Shifra and Pua did not do what they were instructed by Parai, ein anu yoidim, don't we know, shekimu as hayeladim, that they kept the babies alive? Lama hutzrich hakasav loymar v'techayen as hayeladim. Why does the Torah have to tell me that they kept the babies alive? It says they didn't follow the direction. They didn't do what Melech Mitzrayim told them. So I know, what does that mean? They didn't kill the babies. They left them alive. Why does the Torah have to continue with these next three words? V'techayena es hayeladim. And they kept the babies alive. So says the Medrash, yesh kilus b'soich kilus. There's a praise inside of a praise here. Loi dayan. It's not enough shaloi kimu es dvarav. It's not enough that they didn't listen to Parai. They continued and went beyond, and they did favors and good things for these children and for these birthing mothers. Some of these mothers were poor. And these midwives would go, they would collect water, they'd collect food, from the ladies or the families, the homes that had more. And then they would come back and they would give it to the poor ladies. They'd collect formula, they'd collect pacifiers, they'd collect baby blankets, they'd collect, I don't know what other baby things need to be collected, but they'd collect all the things that are needed for babies, diapers and things like that. Vehein mechayai says banin. And they would keep the babies alive. And that's what it means, not that they let them live, That we already know from Lo Yasuka Asher Diber Alei Melech Mitzrayim. We already know that they left them alive because they didn't listen to Paro. What did they do? They went over and beyond. They took care of these babies. They made sure that they were provided for. They collected supplies for the baby. Fascinating, fascinating thing over here. It's not enough that they didn't kill the baby. It's not enough. I mean, you think about it like this. They're not going to be a murderer, right? God-fearing women, tzadekos, tzidkaniyos. So Pari tells them, kill the boys. So that's very understandable. Okay, I'm not going to be party to this. I'm going to step away. I'm not going to do what you told me to do. I'll come up with an excuse as how to get around it. That would have been enough. That's where most people, I think, most God-fearing people would have said, Pari told me to do this. I'm going to think of a plan, an excuse, how to get out of it. And that's definitely the correct thing to do. But after that, they could have said, okay, I did what I needed to do. I walked away. I didn't kill the children. But they went ahead afterwards and they exerted themselves and they put themselves out to make sure that not only did they leave the children alive and just kind of sneak out of the situation, but they proactively went and cared for these children. That's the first piece. The Torah continues and says, well, what happened for Yocheved and Miriam? Vayas lehem batim, Hashem made for them houses. Hashem made for them homes. So Rashi says, and over here I'm quoting Rashi, Bate kahuna v'levia v'malchus. What are homes? There are homes of kahuna, levia, and malchus, and the kingdoms. And he brings a raya that the word batim from a pasuk in Malachim is referred to as Beis Hashem, the people that are going to serve in the Beis HaMikdash, Kehanim and Leviim. It's called Beis HaMelech, the house of the Melech, of the kings. So kahuna v'levia mi Yocheved. Yocheved, the mother of Moshe Rabbeinu, the mother of Aaron HaKohen, she was zoichet to have homes of kahuna and levia come from her. Umalchus, and Malchus is going to come from Miriam. It's going to come from Miriam, who's Moshe Rabbeinu's sister, but she's going to be the mother of Beis David HaMelech. K'di'isa b'Masechah Saita, like we find in Masechah Saita. Okay. So, just from this first episode, and we're going to have two more to come, we see this idea that when you put yourself out, and not only are you not party to something evil, but you proactively help other people, and you proactively take a stand against it. That's a quality of leadership that the Rebbeinu Shalom decided that, well, these are the people that I want to be the leaders of Klal Yisrael. The leaders of Klal Yisrael, the Kohen Gadol, and the Nasi for many, many, many generations. The Kohen Gadol came from Aaron HaKohen, and the Nasi came from Beis David HaMelech. Even after the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, and even after there's no more Kohen Gadol, and the institution of Melucha had been canceled for thousands of years afterwards, but for many, many years afterwards, the leaders of Klal Yisrael were the Nasi and somebody from the Kohen Gadol's family. Let's continue on. Next piece. Next piece of leadership, next appointment of leadership that we find in this week's parasha. Vayigdal Moshe. So Moshe Rabbeinu was born. He was sent out in the Nile River. Basya Bas Pari took him in. Vayigdal Moshe, and Moshe grew up. Vayetze Yelechov, and he went out to his brothers. Vayar B'sivleisam, and he saw them in their burdens and their slavery. Vayar Ish Mitzri Make Ish Ivri Me'achav. And he saw a Mitzri person hitting a Jewish slave. Let's read this medrash. Vayar b'sivleisam, he saw them in their slavery and their burdens. Mahu vayar, what does it mean that he saw? Shahayaraya b'sivleisam, he saw them in their affliction and their burden. V'boichen, Moshe Rabbeinu cried. V'oimer, and he said, Chaval li aleichem. Oy, I wish to be like them. Mi tein musi aleichem. Let my death, let my end be just like them. She'ein lecha melacha kasha mimlechas hatit. There's no harder work than people that are laying bricks and working with cement. V'haya noisink seifav, and Moshe Rabbeinu bent his shoulder into it. U'mesayeh l'chol echad ve'echad, and he helped every single person. Skip a little bit. Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Two lines from the bottom of that medrash, second word. Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem says, Ata hinachta yiskecha, you let alone your business. You left the things that you had to do, v'alachta lireis b'tzaran shel Yisrael, and you went to go look at the tsar of Bnei Yisrael, v'nahagta behen minig achim, and you acted brotherly with them. Ani maniach es elyoin v'satachtoinim, I'm going to leave all the things that I have going up in Shemayim v'aretz, where I'm comfortable, daber imchan, I'm going to speak with you, I'm going to connect with you with Moshe Rabbeinu. Another aspect of leadership, and you think about it like this, Moshe Rabbeinu, how much did he relieve? How much did he fix the situation? Thousands and thousands of slaves, they're all working super hard. So Moshe Rabbeinu, one person, goes ahead and he gets involved and he starts helping too. It's not that much of a relief. Superhuman, maybe. But in the big scheme of things, Moshe Rabbeinu going and helping pour cement and build bricks and build towers, it did not relieve that much pain. But he carried the pain together with his brothers. He carried the pain together with them. It's a different aspect of leadership. The first one is, well, you had poor mothers that couldn't afford baby formula, so Yocheved and Miriam went ahead and they found some baby formula and they took care of the kids. There was a void and they filled it. Over here, when you're coming and you're sharing the pain with all the Jewish slaves, he's not really filling a big void. He's not relieving much of the work. He's carrying the burden together with his friends. It's a different aspect, is that it's not that I can't necessarily fix the situation, but I could get involved with it and I could share it with you. It's more of an emotional type of a relief. It's not a physical relief. I don't think that this really helped relieve too much of the burden. It's another aspect of a leader. First one we spoke about with Yocheved and Miriam. There's something that needs to be done. It's not enough just to do what you need to do in order to alleviate your own conscience. Don't kill the babies. No, they got involved and they helped. They got involved and they took care of them. The second one over here is that you join in the pain. You join in the pain. It's not going to help much, but it creates a sense of camaraderie. So we see that a leader of Klal Yisrael has to also be together with the people, not something aloof, not something separate on top. He has to join in with the people. Next little piece over here, it's just a pasuk. After this, Vayetze b'yom hasheni, Moshe Rabbeinu went out again the second day. First day he went out and he was sharing the work with the Jewish slaves. He told off the Mitzri, he killed the Mitzri. He goes out again the second day. V'hinei shnei anoshim nitzim. Ivrim nitzim. There are two Jewish people that are fighting. Vayomer l'Rasha, and Moshe Rabbeinu said to the Rasha, the one that had his hand raised, Lama sakariecha, why are you hitting your friend? And what did they respond? Vayomer, and they said, Mi samcha l'sish sar v'shoifet aleinu. Who appointed you to be a leader and a judge for us? So even without any mefarshim, I think this is very, very telling. They themselves recognize it. I think it's something that we all recognize. If you see something wrong happening, if you see one yid hitting another yid, if you see something terrible, and you speak up, that is a quality of leadership. And that's exactly what Dazim Aviram said. You're acting like a leader. You're acting like a sar and a shayfet. Who appointed you is their question. But everybody recognizes that if you see something going wrong, you see somebody doing something wrong, and you get involved and you tell them to stop, and you stand up against it, you speak out against it, that is another quality of a leader. And Dasan Vavirim went ahead and they pointed that out. I think it's a pretty obvious thing. A leader has to not only share in the burden, not only help take care of people, but a leader sometimes has to stand back and say, you shouldn't be doing that. That's a wrong thing to do. Stop it. The last piece It's towards the end of the parasha. Moshe Rabbeinu already spoke with the Rebbeinu Shalom by the Sneh. He's coming back to Mitzrayim. He has a meeting with Parai. Didn't go so well at the beginning. And Parai increases the workload on the Yidden, and they're not managing. They're not able to pull it off. So what happens if a slave can't complete his workload? No, Aylib. What happens when a slave can't complete his workload? He gets beaten, right? He gets beaten. Let's take a look at this pasuk. Vayuku shoitre b'nei Yisrael. Parai, he had a hierarchy in the slave system here. So he had the Mitzrim. The Mitzrim were the highest point in the hierarchy, the Egyptians. And then he appointed shoitrim, he appointed officers from the Yidden, and those officers were in charge of groups of slaves. So the officers, they were the taskmasters, the ones that had to make sure that the slaves finished their quota. So the Shoitrei B'nai Yisrael, the officers, the taskmasters, the Yiddish taskmasters, they got hit. Keeping going. Asher Samu Aleim Noig Seifarai, that the Noigsim, or the, higher level taskmaster, appointed these Shoitrei B'nai Yisrael. They got hit lamor, and they were told, Madua leichilisem chakchem. Why did you not finish your quota? So the Jewish slaves did not seem to get hit over here. The Jewish shoitrim, the Jewish taskmasters that were on top of them, they were the ones that got the beating because the Jewish slaves did not finish their quota. Turn it over and let's take a look at this medrash. Actually, I think it's a Rashi. HaShoitrim Yisraelim hayu. The shoitrim, these officers, they were Yisraelim, they were Yidden. V'chosin al chavereim milidachkam. And they had mercy, they had pity on their friends, the Jewish slaves, to push them too hard. Shahayu mashlimin halavenim lenoigsim, sheim mitzrim, vayachaser min aschum. When they would present the bricks to the Egyptian taskmasters, and there was missing. They didn't fill up the quota. They had to do so many, and they did less. Hayu malkin oisoim al shaloi dachku as oisei amlacha. So the Egyptians would beat the Yiddish taskmasters that they didn't push the workers hard enough. We just had construction in the building, right? So if I had a taina, if I had something that didn't go right, I didn't speak to the person that was laying the flooring or taking care of the electric work. I spoke to the foreman and the job. They would get beaten that they didn't push the slaves harder. Therefore, those Yiddish shoitrim, those Jewish taskmasters, they were zoiche to become part of the Sanhedrin, and some of the ruchnius, some of the shine that the Rebbeinu Shalom put onto Moshe was saved. It wasn't all given to Moshe. Some of it was held back. V'husam aleim, it was placed on these people that eventually became the Sanhedrin. This is the third episode I see in the parsha that we have people that stood up, people that did something, and from that they were zoiche to be the Sanhedrin. From that they were chosen to be leaders. The third one's also a little bit different. The third one is that they're shielding the other people from pain. I'm going to get hit because you're not going to get hit. If you get hit, the shoitrim won't get hit, right? If the shoitrim would go ahead and push the lower level slaves harder and harder, so they may have finished their quota, and then the shoitrim would have been fine. The mitzrim wouldn't have hit them. So over here, it's the idea of a leader in Klal Yisrael. It's another aspect. It's acting as a human shield. I'll take the beating for you. I'll take the responsibility. I'll take the punishment and you won't. So to sum it up, we have the Maisa with the Miyaldais, that not only did they not do what any normal person would have done, which is try to figure out a way not to be a murderer, they went over and beyond and they provided. They provided for the babies. They were chosen for positions of leadership. Moshe Rabbeinu sharing in the oil with his friends didn't relieve much, but it was a psychological, I'm there with you. And then the third one are the Noigsim, or the Shaitrim, the Jewish taskmasters that took the beating instead of the Yiddish slaves taking the beating. Trying to think about the... How much time is it? Do I have any time? Yeah, not much time. You know, there's a famous story that Rav Shimon Schwab spent the Shabbos in Radin. Rav Shimon Schwab, he was the Rav of the Yekisha community in Washington Heights, and as a Bacher, he spent the Shabbos in Radin, and he got to meet Rabbi Yisrael Meir HaKohen, the Chafetz Chaim. And the Chafetz, anybody heard the story? What transpired, this conversation that happened between Rav Shimon Schwab and the Chafetz Chaim? And the Chafetz Chaim said to Reb Shimon Schwab, he said, eventually the Beis HaMikdash is going to be rebuilt, and you know I'm a Kohen, and I hope to be able to do Avodah in the Beis HaMikdash. And he asks Reb Shimon Schwab, and then he was a Bacher, he asks Shimon Schwab, well, are you a Kohen? So Rabbi Schwab said, no, I'm not. So the Chafetz Chaim says to him, well, why not? So, I don't know, what's the obvious answer? Moshe, are you a Kohen? No. Why not? That's exactly what Reb Shimon Schwab answered. Well, my father's not a Kohen. And the Chafetz Chaim, though, well, he just asked him again. So why aren't you a Kohen? So maybe, I don't know, the Chafetz Chaim was an elderly man, maybe he's hard of hearing. He was hard of hearing. So Reb Shimon Schwab answered again, well, my father's not a Kohen, you see, and the Chafetz Chaim asked him a third time. So obviously, what's the Chafetz Chaim trying to get to? Well, I'll tell you, I'll answer it with another story. My parents are two brothers married two sisters. And, hang on, let me explain. Two brothers married two sisters. My uncle is my father's brother, and he is married to my mother's sister. And according to Reb Yehuda Levi left a will and testament, and he said that it's not recommended to do. However, there's a later tshuva from the Noda B'Yehuda that the Noda B'Yehuda permits it. And before my father and mother got engaged, or before it went really anywhere, my grandfather had asked my uncle, or he'd asked my uncle to speak to Ramesha Feinstein about it. And Ramesha gave his answer, which is an interesting answer. It's not really so relevant right now to the shir. And my father had spoken to Rabbi Eliashiv. Rabbi Eliashiv was a younger man in those days, sometime in the 70s. And so my father was walking with Rabbi Eliashiv in the street, and he presented the question. He said, well, there's a prospect over here, but it's two brothers, two sisters. So Rabbi Eliashiv says back to my father, Ma baya, what's the problem? So my father starts saying, well, you know, the Reb Yehuda Levi and the Noda B'Yehuda, and is it okay, is it not okay? And Rabbi Eliashiv responds again, Ma baya, what's the problem? So my father, wait a minute, goes at it all over again. Rabbi Eliashiv says, Ma baya, what's the problem? So at that point my father chapped, so he says, Kinireh, it seems to be that the Rav is saying, Ein baya, there is no problem. So Rabbi Eliashiv says, yes. And that was it, that was his answer, and the rest is history. So, going back to the story with the Chafetz Chaim, right? So the Chafetz Chaim, well, why isn't your father a Kohen? Or why aren't you a Kohen? So again, he's going to answer again. So you tell me, why am I not a Kohen? Why am I not a Kohen? And the Chafetz Chaim said, and I think this really just pulls this all together. He says, many, many, many years ago, there was a call to action. There were things that needed to be taken care of. Be it over here, this week's Parsha, Shifra and Puah. Be it a man like Moshe Rabbeinu. Be it later on by the Egel Azav, when Moshe Rabbeinu came and cried, Mila Hashem Elai, all the people were worshiping this idol. And Moshe Rabbeinu said, Mila Hashem Elai, and who came? All of Shevet Levi came. And there was a cry to action. And people stood up and they did the right thing. They went over and beyond. They did the unpopular thing. And those were the people that were chosen to do Avodah in the Beis HaMikdash. Those were the people that were chosen to be leaders. And the Chafetz Chaim ended this with Reb Shimon Schwab, and he said, just make sure that the next time that there's a call to action, next time that the tide is going one way and somebody has to stand up against that tide, and there's a call, there's a battle cry, Mila Hashem Elai, make sure that you come running. Make sure that you come running. To a certain extent, this happens every day. To a certain extent, this happens every day. The yeshiva bell rings. It's time for Shachris. Make sure you come running. It's time for Shir. Shir's starting. Make sure you come running.
The end of the day bell.
End of the day bell. Make sure that, don't stay too long after. No, but everything we do, there's a coffee. It's in my hand. It's a call to action. You know what the call to action is? Shakol niyeh b'dvaroi. It's a call to action. Every single moment of our lives, there's bigger, there's smaller, but every single moment of our lives, we have calls to action. And the way that we respond to those calls of actions, it defines who we are, but it defines future generations for eternity. And every call to action that we respond to properly, it's building ourselves, it's turning ourselves into leaders, and it's creating a beautiful, beautiful future for ourselves. Okay, fellas? Have a good Shabbos.